Welcome back, folks, to another edition of my WrestleRant video series where I give my in-depth analysis of all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'll be talking about the Hell in a Cell installments, 2012 today, 2013, and the next installment. But in the 2012 pay-per-view, I thought was one of the better installments of the Hell in a Cell event. But with that being said, let's get right down to it. Kicking off the show is Randy Orton versus Alberto Del Rio. I personally really enjoyed this feud going into this matchup. I thought it was great. Randy Orton nor Del Rio were doing anything of note at the time. So they just kind of threw him into a random feud together. Randy Orton was pretty much directionless for most of 2012 coming off of his suspension. Del Rio, after his feud with Sheamus ran its course, they just randomly threw him into a feud with Randy Orton. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it brought the best out of both guys, Del Rio specifically. The guy had no personality at the time. No one really took him seriously as a contender to the World Heavyweight title. He had no charisma at this point in time after being buried in the hands of John Cena the year before. But I thought this was a great match between Orton and Del Rio, especially to kick off the pay-per-view. Got a lot more time than I thought it would at 12 minutes. Del Rio was kind of calling himself, donning himself the new apex predator of the WWE, showing more personality than we have seen from him in a long time before this. So I thought this was one of the better feuds, in my opinion, in the career of Del Rio in the 4 years that he was in the WWE from 2010 to 2014, ultimately. But this is a great matchup, great opener. Randy Orton goes over. Not really surprising. Del Rio pretty much lost almost all of his matches from 2011 to 2012 before winning almost all of his matches from late 2012 to late 2013. So it actually kind of changed in luck for Del Rio from that point forward. But nevertheless, though, great match from Orton Del Rio to kick off the show, with Randy Orton having his hand raised by the end of it. Up next for the WWE Tag Team Championships was Team Rhodes Scholars, Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow, after winning the tag team tournament to contend for the tag team titles against Team Hell No, Kane and Daniel Bryan. So the match itself was pretty solid. I mean, like I said before, they really put an effort into this tag team division at this point in time to make it mean something finally. After Daniel Bryan and Kane won those tag team titles in, I think, Night of Champions, so in September of that year, the month prior, they really try to put more emphasis on the tag team division by putting more tag teams together, Team Rhodes Scholars being a prime example of that. But they never really had much of a feud going into this matchup, I guess I could say, between the Rhodes Scholars and Team Hell No. So people didn't really have any reason to care. And I also should kind of point out that this show did take place in Atlanta. Not one of the better wrestling crowds, in my opinion anyway. No offense to anyone that lives in Atlanta, but they are never usually the hottest crowds. Maybe it's WWE's fault for not putting forth the best show, but I thought this was a very good show, and this crowd was dead for most of it, so that didn't help matters. But this was a pretty good matchup for what it was. The ending finish was pretty weird. Team Hell No, I mean, not predictably, but I mean, it kind of tied into their whole anger management thing, the whole anger management classes course that they were taking at the time at this point in their tag team. And they got themselves disqualified unintentionally by beating the crap out of Team Rhodes Scholars, getting the 5 count. Still WWE Tag Team Champions. The Rhodes Scholars went over via disqualification, but did not win the titles. It was a good matchup, really didn't blow me away. I mean, it got 15 minutes of in-ring time, which is pretty unprecedented for a tag team matchup in WWE at this point in time anyway. Like I said before, they really tried to put more emphasis on the tag team division at this point in time. Good matchup, didn't really agree with the finish, although it did kind of tie into the crazy mentality of both Kane and Daniel Bryan to go overboard and get themselves respectively disqualified, thus retaining the tag team titles anyway. But I always thought it was a shame that Team Rhodes Scholars never won the tag team titles once in their entire stint as a tag team. They would contend for those titles God knows how many times, and they lost every single time, and I always thought that was a shame. But even still, though, still WWE Tag Team Champions, Team Hell No. Up next for the Intercontinental Championship, Kofi Kingston defending against The Miz. Another rematch from an episode of Main Event, the second ever episode of Main Event, actually, when Kofi Kingston beat The Miz to win the Intercontinental Championship for the 4th time in his career. This was basically The Miz reinvoking his rematch clause. They did have a story behind this matchup, which I did like. They built up a feud nicely between these two. They should have given away the title change on this show to make it more newsworthy as opposed to the Main Event show. I can see why they did that, though. They really wanted to persuade viewers to watch Main Event after the title change, and the title hasn't changed hands on that show since, and it probably never will again, but made that show newsworthy, wanted to get it in the headlines. I understand that, but it would have been better if the title change, if they didn't rush it so quickly, and then instead waited for it to happen on the show. Even still, though, Kofi Kingston and The Miz have never had a bad match. This was not an exception to that rule. Had a very enjoyable contest here. Kofi Kingston, in the end, hit The Miz with the Trouble in Paradise. 1, 2, 3. Still your Intercontinental Champion. So good stuff there, although it was a predictable finish. Kofi Kingston walks out with the IC title still intact. Up next for the United States Championship, Antonio Cesaro. I almost said Cesaro there, but at the time it was still Antonio. Antonio Cesaro defending against Justin Gabriel. These two had a matchup on Raw, I think, 6 days before the pay-per-view, in which Gabriel was the first superstar to beat Cesaro in his reign as United States Champion. I think to hand, aside from that one loss to Christian, I think this was his second ever loss in WWE to Justin Gabriel. So it was a pretty big deal. Gabriel was pretty much a bona fide jobber at the time, which pretty much sucks. The guy's a lot of potential, and I didn't think they would put the title on him on this show. But it was nice to see WWE at least attempt to push him for once after being marginalized for the last couple of years, or years before this anyway. And still to this day anyway, but nevertheless. A good matchup from Cesaro and Gabriel. People didn't really care. Cesaro was trying to get heat by bashing the cities that he was in. I can't remember if he did it on this show or not. But at least he's trying. At least he was trying at this point in his reign. I mean, they did a really nice job with him as United States Champion, his first few months as champion. And I apologize for the shaky camera. I'm just having it on my lap here. But they did a very good job with Cesaro as United States Champion for the final few months of 2012. But it was when they went into 2013 that they really lost their way with the character, and having him lose all the matches that he was involved in against Randy Orton, Ryback, John Cena, and the list goes on and on and on. He never really recovered after that. But I thought at this point in time he was doing pretty well for himself as U.S. champion. He had a good match with Justin Gabriel. Like I said before, a predictable finish. But it was still a nice matchup for what it was. Got the U.S. title match on the card. Got it defended on that pay-per-view, which is something you don't really normally see nowadays. With the exception of Night of Champions, even though every title has to be defended there anyway. But even so, Cesaro and Gabriel having a very nice matchup on the show. Predictable finish, but it was what it was. Cesaro still the title holder of the Star-Spangled Championship. So good stuff there. Up next, an impromptu tag team match. And before this, I guess I should point this out. Like I said before, Atlanta is not the best crowd. In my personal opinion, like I said before, no offense to anyone that lives in Atlanta. But before this point in the show, the crowd was pretty much dead for all of what they did. And I don't want to say they rightfully deserved it, because like I said before, the tag team match was good. Orton and Del Rio I thought was great, a great matchup. Kingston and Miz had a good match. Cesaro and Gabriel had a nice match. So they could have been a bit more alive than they were. It's not like WWE was feeding them shit. I guess there wasn't really all that much to get excited about, but I thought they should have been a little bit more alive than they were. But this match kind of helped solve that problem. It was Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara, who were kind of an on and off tag team at the time, taking on the Primetime Players in an impromptu last-minute match added to the card. Great matchup. Very, very fun. Like I said before, really awoke the crowd. Mysterio and Sin Cara were a very great on and off tag team. They had some ongoing history with the Primetime Players from September to now, or at this point in the year for WWE. I think they faced off in the tag team tournament at one point too. But I was happy to see them square off on the show. They got about 13 minutes, and that's pretty sweet. Like I said before, it was kind of a testament to how hard they were trying to push the tag team division at the time. So to give them that much time was pretty cool. Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara picked up the victory. I was always really disappointed that they never went after the tag team titles. Not right after this, but at some point. I mean, they even pinned Team Hell No at one point. An episode of SmackDown, I think in February of 2013, or the SmackDown after the Royal Rumble, or something like that. They never really capitalized off the tag team of Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. A lot of people, myself included, were really hoping for them to part ways and split at one point, and that never really happened going into WrestleMania 29 or WrestleMania 30 or WrestleMania 28. So that was pretty disappointing. But even still, though, fun tag team match. Kind of woke up the crowd a little bit. And like I said before, Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara went over. And I always like the Primetime Players too. Why they never got a run with the tag team titles is also beyond me. I guess they were never really in the right place at the right time, which is kind of a shame. But even so, they're a very fun tag team that I wish would reunite at some point, since God knows that Titus O'Neil isn't doing anything right now except for that Slater Gator bullshit. And Darren Young is, I think, out with an injury, but he'll be back soon though, apparently. So up next for the World Heavyweight Championship, Sheamus defending, I almost said Big Show, he actually won the matchup, but Sheamus defending his World Heavyweight Championship against the Big Show. So the feud going into this matchup was pretty shitty. Sheamus was doing a solid job as World Heavyweight Champion. People were already kind of turning on him because he won every single fucking match that he was involved in. But he had a very solid reign. He was winning every single match that he was involved in, and that kind of brought some prestige back to the title, in my opinion. He was having good matches, even though the feud with Del Rio wasn't really all that exciting. It was, they did have a lot of good matches over the course of their respective feud. So Big Show and Sheamus, good matchup here. Not a good matchup. I thought this was a great matchup. Easily, in my opinion, one of the best matches of Big Show's career and maybe even Sheamus' career for that matter. I know he had a number of great matches that year with the likes of Daniel Bryan and Del Rio for that matter, Chris Jericho, Big Show on this show. I mean, it looks like a shitty-ass match on paper. But before this matchup, Big Show and Sheamus had never really crossed paths, so it felt fresh for what it was. Big Show getting back into the world title picture was not really an intriguing thought to me. Some people thought that Sheamus would win, and even if Big Show did win, people thought that Dolph Ziggler, who was the Money in the Bank holder at that time, would cash in his contract and become the World Heavyweight Champion. That did not happen. That would not happen for the next 6 months, actually. But a great matchup between Big Show and Sheamus on this show. Probably the best match of the night, hands down. I don't really think there's an argument about that whatsoever. Went about 20 minutes, too. They got a lot of time to shine. Was really happy to see that. Big Show in the end. I think the final few minutes of this matchup were probably the best part about it. The overall matchup I thought was good, but the final few minutes I thought were very well done. Big Show knocking out Sheamus with the WMD. Clean pinfall, 1-2-3. New World Heavyweight Champion. I thought his reign, personally speaking here, I thought his reign should have gone until WrestleMania 29 instead of having it cut short going into, I think it was like the first or second week of 2013 that they had him drop it to Del Rio on an episode of SmackDown, and it kind of brought back that excitement feel to Friday nights for like a week or two. But that whole Del Rio title reign did not go as they planned, and I really wish that they had Big Show hold that title. I mean, I hate Big Show, but it would have made more sense to have him hold that championship until WrestleMania, and maybe even then drop it to Del Rio and create a WrestleMania moment, or drop it to Ryback, who I thought they were going to have face-off against each other at WrestleMania that year. But even still, though, a very good matchup between Big Show and Sheamus, and like I said before, by far the best match of this show. So up next, the Divas kind of getting the shaft, no pun intended, on this show. In between the two world title matches, the death slot, so to speak. A good matchup for what it was. Eve Torres defending her Divas title against both Layla and Caitlyn in a triple threat match, and had a story behind it with Eve, arguably, I mean, it was assumed that she was the one who attacked Caitlyn backstage and Night of Champions. It would be her. Everyone knew it was her except for, like, Layla and Teddy Long. Everyone pretty much knew, and Booker T, too. No, it was Booker T and Layla that weren't really sure of it. But Caitlyn and Layla didn't really have any established issues going into this matchup, so they really didn't have any... The fans didn't really have any reason to care for the most part. I mean, like I said, they had a story going into the matchup, which was an improvement over most of the Divas division in 2013, or 2012, I should say. That was a very bad year for women's wrestling, or at least for women's wrestling overall, because a lot of women left both TNA and WWE respectively. But the Divas division, WWE, got literally no time for their matches. Sometimes they weren't even on Raw or SmackDown. They had no TV time whatsoever, aside from, some brief segments and shit like that, so it was pretty terrible. But it was a fine match of what it was. Eve Torres, Layla, and Caitlyn, triple threat match of the Divas title. Fine for what it was. Eve Torres comes out on top, still the Divas champion. And then we get to the main event. CM Punk versus Ryback inside Hell in a Cell for the WWE title. Now, the big talking point going into this matchup was that CM Punk was on, in the midst of a nearly year-long reign as WWE champion, and a lot of people wanted to see him hold that title, myself included, until he went off to face The Rock at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view for the WWE Championship. But the biggest issue with that was that Ryback was also undefeated going into the show in singles competition, and this was inside Hell in a Cell, so you couldn't do a DQ, you couldn't do a count-out. It was really bad booking to have this matchup going into Hell in a Cell. I think the original plan was to do John Cena CM Punk, which could have been a great cell match. But of course, John Cena got injured. He was, I think, on the pre-show with Dolph Ziggler doing a segment with them about AJ or something stupid like that. But anyway, though, this was a good matchup. It was what it was, but like I said before, they really botched the feud going into it. I thought it was a great feud going into it, in that fans really wanted to see Ryback get his hands on CM Punk, who was really shaping up to be a great heel atop the WWE roster, because the roster depth at that time was so terrible. I mean, kind of rings true for nowadays, too. But the whole thing going into this was that you couldn't take the title off CM Punk, and I didn't think it was time to have Ryback's undefeated streak come to an end. And it was also in the home of Goldberg in Atlanta, Georgia, so they got the Goldberg chants, all that kind of garbage. But even still, though, they really painted themselves into a corner going into the show, but they booked it the best way they possibly could, with CM Punk winning by the skin of his teeth by having the referee Brad Maddox, who would make his debut on... Actually, he wouldn't make his debut on the show. He was actually kind of the figure who screwed over CM Punk a couple of weeks before this, so that was never really explained. It never was neither was this. I mean, I guess Paul Heyman, it was explained a couple months later that he paid off Brad Maddox and the Shield, but there was never really any stable that came out of that like a lot of people thought there would be. But even so, though, a great matchup. No, but it was a good matchup, and they did the best with it that they possibly could. I mean, it only went 11 minutes. I mean, they tried to make good use of the Hell in a Cell structure, but this matchup did not need the Hell in a Cell. It shouldn't have taken place within Hell in a Cell. They could have done a DQ or a count out and still kept Ryback undefeated and kept CM Punk as champion. They ran into that problem on this show, so that wasn't good. But they made the most of it, like I said before, by having Brad Maddox, who was the referee, screw over Ryback, and Ryback was the last man standing by attacking CM Punk afterwards, delivering the shell shock to him atop the cell, and attacking Brad Maddox inside the Hell in a Cell and just throwing him against the wall and all that kind of stuff, which was really entertaining to watch. So, that kind of closed off the show. No new WWE Champion crowns. A lot of controversy to close off the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. The theme of the show was nice, by the way, too. I forgot to mention that. It was In the End by Black Veil Brides, I think it was. Great song. Check it out. Hell in a Cell always has great themes, even though the shows aren't always that great. A lot of people don't really look back at the show as being great. And I mean, in compared to some other shows from 2012, WrestleMania 28, not SummerSlam. What were some great shows from that year? TLC I thought was spectacular. Night of Champions I thought was very, very good. Even Over the Limit was entertaining. Extreme Rules that year was amazing. But, so a lot of people don't look back at the show as being great. I thought it was very good, especially since going into this. I mean, actually going into this, I was more enthralled in the product than a lot of people were. Maybe it was just me, but I thought they did a fine job of building up the show for the most part. Wasn't a lot of excitement on the show. There weren't any title changes, no really big controversy outside of the main events. But from start to finish, I thought it was an enjoyable show. Would I suggest you watch it? Probably not in its entirety. I thought the crowd kind of killed most of the show. But if there's anything from the show that you should go back and watch, it is Orton versus Del Rio. Great matchup. Big Show versus Sheamus. I know that sounds weird, but after you watch the matchup, you'll not regret it. And Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara taking on the Primetime Players, which is also a very fun matchup that you should check out from this show. So that's going to do it for my review of the 2012 installment of WWE Hell in a Cell. Thanks for watching, folks. Always appreciate it. You can support the show by finding me on Facebook at Graham G.S. Matthews, following me on Twitter at WrestleRant, and subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing this video, all that kind of stuff. Really means the world to me. Really do appreciate it. And the next WrestleRant video will wrap up my review of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-views with the 2013 installment, which was not a great show by any stretch of the imagination. So stay tuned for that next couple of days. Once again, folks, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon.